it's more curative. And look at some of the neglected disease also, problem in the developing world, which is still not addressed. And Global Alliance for Vaccine, looking at a bigger picture, but certainly the regional diseases are also needs a bigger importance. And I think we need to going to be discussing on the capital also. Risk capital is another problem because it's a very high capital investment, the vaccine industry, and highly regulated products, and which needs now a long-term view, long-term vision, and also high capital. I mean, Chinese companies are lucky; they have a very phenomenal government support from the Chinese government. Whereas in India, the most of the vaccine industries are driven by private entrepreneurs. It's not supported even 1% by the government. Rather, we pay the penalty by being an entrepreneur in India to the government. So I think there's a different contrast between the two economies, but certainly in the interest of the public health, all of us are working in one goal: how to help the prevention is more important than curative. And I think I'll leave it and make my colleagues to be joining with that. We'll make it more debating issues on various issues. Thank you.
Dr. Hasid Joshipura, Vice President South Asia and Managing Director for GSK India, Mr. Keval Handa, Managing Director Pfizer India, Dr. Wenyong Wang, Merchant and Investment Banking, Burrell and Company, Mr. Rupesh Bhargava, Senior Director Sales and Marketing, Sanofi. So that provides us a big mix of companies all in India. I mean, they're all looking at a lot of interest, a lot of pessimism is there, but let's see how we can deliberate on that and see if some conclusive. Thank you so much.
Mics are there? Mics.
We don't have the mics. I mean, enabling industry success is definitely a great point where you have so much of population which is unimmunized, and a lot is there in terms of the delivery mechanism. And Dr. Bhan M.K. Bhan wrote an article in the Economic Times a couple of weeks ago, which mentioned about a plethora of vaccines in development which can be applied to Indian population. And so in that context, there is a lot of interest so far as vaccine development is concerned, introduction of new launches, but there is a lot of regulatory issues, there are a lot of risk financing issues which need to be bridged. So can I start with Dr. Krishna? He's probably seen a lot of these and still he's grown. So maybe, to set the ball rolling, he will be able to give us a context of exactly how things can be navigated and how things can be seen forward.
I mean, I just give us an entrepreneur. We look at only one thing. When we moved to India, we just looked at the hepatitis B vaccine when GSK and the Merck was selling. It's very expensive, but not reachable to a lot of the population. We looked at it, how do we make without violating intellectual property. Important point is, without violating intellectual property. How do you take the product differently? But I think we were entered with the concept of reaching the poor people. We reached that level. But the game here is still in India, not even 50% of people are vaccinated. The sad part of the country is the National Immunization of Hepatitis B started only about a year ago. Not even a year, 6 months ago. So we were there last 10 years, but not able to introduce the vaccine in India. That shows the market absorption of a vaccine is still complex in a government systems. And the game is changing now. So the global standards are coming in, WHO pre-qualification issues. The second issue is clinical. Now, earlier Indian companies, now you do 100, 200 people, you're okay with the clinical trial, but now people are asking for efficacy trial, clinical trial. It's a major issue. Now, for example, for us, like a rotavirus, we're doing 10,000 newborn babies in efficacy trial for almost 4 years, a clinical trial. So we are reaching to the level of the required the global standards, but still a lot of hurdles. And but one nice thing is we are at the right time in the globe where the vaccine is really getting recognized as an important field. Earlier it was a more pharma and biotech therapeutic proteins were considered as a more important from the society point of view. But today with the globe, a lot of NGOs like Gates Foundation, Gavi, all motivating the vaccines. But at the same time, those games are going to put a tremendous pressure on the industry also to reach the global standards, and also reaching the clinical trial milestones, and that can be satisfied to the global authorities. So you have both opportunities and threats, but that's a game of the business. And we're at the right time. Thank you very much.
Right time, but still there is a lot of pessimism in terms of the regulatory clearances. We haven't seen much action happening. It's all in a state of flux. So, in terms of time, I think you're referring to the opportunities present. But how do you realize the business goal?
I mean, in every developing country, you can keep on criticizing for the next 2 days. Everything is a problem, problem, problem. Yes, I think every developing world is going through a transition of, making it imperfect system to try to make it a perfect system. I think that's a common. I think no system is going to be 100% foolproof, including US. I think the game is to understand that threat or understand the weakness of the system and work with that system. And I think, if you ask me truthfully, our regulatory system have changed in the last 2 years. If you ask me, has it changed to reach the US standard? No. But certainly they are there. They're proceeding in that direction, Indian government. And even in Chinese FDA, they've changed in regulatory system in the last 2 years, 2-3 years. They've phenomenally changed the regulatory system also. I think the emerging economies are learning the curve and they're changing in a fast-track manner. But it will take time. But certainly we can't keep criticizing the system. We have to take the system and work with them.
Regulatory environment which is not very, very conducive for business growth. You mentioned a few points earlier. Can you express your thoughts now?
I mean, I would first go to a little bit of historical background. And let's say the entire universal humanization started in 1978 or so. And where are we today? In 2006, we talked about introducing 3 more vaccines. And it's all happening at a very slow pace. 50% is the immunization average rate. And when you're talking about any introduction, you're talking about sequential introduction. You're not talking about doing anything parallel. So I'm sitting with Ella today, so there's a lot of entrepreneur that is rubbing on me. So all I'm saying is, okay, you can keep on talking and saying that the entire vaccine should be in UIP and the government should be working on it. But the historical perspective is clearly shown that it's not happening. And whether it's going to happen in the next few years, I don't know. So where is the opportunity for us? And how do we really partner with the government? It's something, a thought process that we need to really look at and says, how do we make things simple for government to launch these vaccines, not in a sequential manner, but in a parallel manner? How do you partner with government in surveillance? Now, there is a reluctance on the part of the government to say that the private parties to do the surveillance. Okay, fact is, there is the credibility of the data, that they are not very sure what the data would be and whether the data would be the right data. So how do you actually build that trust with the government and says, there is a data which is global data, then there is a data we are ready to do in India. You can supervise, you can put the protocols and other things, but at least you start partnering with us on surveillance so that the data is available. Then there is the issue on the adverse reporting where there is none. How do you partner with the government to build a credibility around the vaccines? And then is the other partnership we can talk about, the burden of the disease, the cost of the vaccine and so on and so forth. So my issue is still we have this 50% of the population which is outside the government. What are we going to do? Now, for example, we have one vaccine. How much is the population we are reaching there? There is about birth cohort of about 25 million children. How many of the children we reach to? It's a pneumococcal vaccine, it's a pneumonia. Can we do something more to reach out? And what is that the private partners can do it? And how do we partner it to provide it at a low cost? I think those are the opportunities I see it, rather than saying that, put everything in place, then we will get into it. That's not going to happen. So let's partner with the government on areas where I think it's easy to partner, and also look at the opportunities where the government is not able to reach out or have an access, and we as private players can really reach out.
Sanofi actually put a very big bet in India, when you did the Shanta deal, and actually I remember the mention that it will be used as a vaccine manufacturing unit for the southern hemisphere